Hi there. In this tutorial we're going to be taking a look at the wonderfully named Tannenbaum Schmidt Continuum. Always a pleasure to say. Now in one of our previous tutorials we're looking at the topic of management and leadership, and one of the concepts we investigated was Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, which really set out just two types of manager that McGregor observed. Theory X being the more authoritarian, having quite a negative view of employees and their motives, and Theory Y being a little bit more democratic, a little bit more collaborative. But really McGregor was pitching that there was just two management styles that people might adopt. With the Tannenbaum Schmidt Continuum, we've got a slightly more broader spectrum that managers might operate on. To the left of the continuum here, Tannenbaum and Schmidt set out that some leaders, some managers in the organisation might take on what they called a manager-centred approach to their profession. Manager-centred approach means that really it's the manager that is in charge. They're the key factor in the organisation, and accordingly they'll do their jobs in a way where they retain most of the decision making or power or autonomy for themselves, giving very little discretion to their employees to operate outside of the parameters that they set. At the other end of the continuum we've got a more subordinate centred approach. Perhaps more in tune with McGregor's Theory Y, where you entrust more power, more autonomy to the people in your team to make decisions for themselves. So what separates McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y and the Tannenbaum and Schmidt Continuum is that Tannenbaum and Schmidt didn't just see managers as being clustered in these two extremes. They actually thought there were 7 points along this continuum where managers might broadly be placed along a spectrum, if you like, of ways that they may approach their jobs or philosophies they may adopt when they're doing their managerial duties. Now, there's 7 points along the continuum, but Tannenbaum and Schmidt split those into 4 different categories. To the left, we've got the tell style leaders, ones that make decisions and just tell the staff what they've decided. Then we've got the sell style leaders who will still make decisions unilaterally but will communicate to their staff why they've made that decision. Then we've got 3 different classifications of consultative leadership, where managers will involve their team more when they're making decisions. And then finally we've got 2 different types of share leadership styles, where managers actually allow members of the team a little bit more power and a little bit more involvement in the decision making process. So we've got these 4 different categories, but Tannenbaum and Schmidt came up with 7 different points along this continuum at which managers might operate. So the first, as we said, is the tell style. The type of manager who's probably quite autocratic. He likes to retain all of the decision-making power for themselves. Will really see their staff in that kind of Theory X mould, looking to be instructed, to be given direction, and it's the manager's job to provide that direction for the staff. Point 2 along the continuum, it's a slightly more collaborative approach. Managers are still making decisions completely unilaterally, but rather than just dish these instructions out to staff, there is at least a process where they will get their staff around the table and try and convince them, persuade them, educate them that the decisions that they're making are in everybody's best interests and it's the right decision for the direction of the firm. As we move further along to point 3, our first of our consult management styles, this time the manager's still making those decisions unilaterally, so we've still got managers keeping very tight control of decision making. But this time they'll invite questions from the team, and rather than it just being one-way dialogue in the decision-making process, for the first time we've got some two-way dialogue where managers are taking questions from the team, explaining the reasoning perhaps behind the decisions that they've made. Moving on to point 4, we start to involve workers a little bit more. This time, as we're inviting the questions from the staff, there's the discretion for the manager actually to make changes to their decisions, to perhaps go back on decisions once they've heard the thoughts and opinions of the team, and maybe kind of plot a different direction once they've had a little bit of an input from the employees. Stage 5, as we move along again, this time we're actually inviting the suggestions from the team before a decision is made. So there's that little bit of consultation with employees, allowing them to pitch their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions. Then the manager will go away, make the decisions, and then bring that decision back to the team. But we're really getting all the way to point 5 here along the continuum, and we've still got the central manager, the central leader, making decisions. And yeah, okay, sometimes as we move across the continuum, they're perhaps persuading staff that it's the right thing to do, or even involving staff and allowing them to pitch in ideas. But all the way until point 5, we've got the leader still being the one that retains that decision-making authority. As we move along to point 6, now we've got managers actually empowering the team members to make decisions on their behalf. So at point 6 here, our first of our share leadership styles, managers may set general parameters for their staff. They'll ask them to work inside some guidelines. They'll set out some rules or some guidelines for the staff to work with, but they're actually now trusting at point 6 for staff to go away and decide for themselves what kind of decisions will be best. And as we move away all the way to point 7 there, this time we may be setting some very loose, very general parameters for staff to work in, but by and large we're allowing staff to decide for themselves the kind of the parameters of the work that they're doing. Managers may be keeping a general overview, but this time we're indulging our staff with the prospect of making more and more of our decision making. So to sum up then, we've got a bit of a difference between what we learned about one of our other tutorials about McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y that really had these two polar extremes of management styles with very little scope between the two, to the Tannenbaum and Schmidt Continuum. This time we're setting out 7 different points across a spectrum that managers may adopt a philosophy along. To the very far left, we've got those more autocratic, authoritarian managers who may just tell people about the decisions that they've made. And as we move across the continuum to point 7 there, we've got far more involvement and autonomy and decision-making power being devolved to people in the team. Okay, hopefully that clears that one up for you. Key topic for the exam, very important one to revise. We'll see you for another tutorial soon. Thank you.